I read over 100 books last year, and I want to talk about them. Let's go. Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Michelle, and like I said, I read over 100 books last year, which is a lot, and it's like a lot for me. It was a personal goal for a very long time to read more than 100 books in 1 year. And I finally succeeded. All I needed to do was have a minor mental breakdown. It's fine. So we're going to talk about the books I read last year in 2024. Let's start off with cozy mysteries. This series, which I only have the second book of, everything else I have on audio. The Countess of Harley series by Diane Freeman. I read books 2 through 5 last year, I believe. The Lady's Guide to Gossip and Murder, A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Murder, A Fiance's Guide to First Wives and Murder, and A Bride's Guide to Marriage and Murder. I read those last year, and I will continue the series. The series is still ongoing. This is delightful. These books are just, oh my God, they're so cute. They're so stinking cute. It does not take place in Regency, but it's kind of like, it gives Bridgerton vibes because it's the London season every time with murder. So it's like Bridgerton vibes, but with murder, but it takes place in a different era. It's not Regency. I believe it's like Victorian. Like think the Bustles and Titanic, and like it's around that time, early 1900s. The book series in general follows the Countess of Harley, newly widowed Countess of Harley, Frances. And she is widowed. She moves to London and is trying to ret from her country home where her husband had passed. We didn't love the husband, but you know. She moves to London, and it's like her shenanigans there. And Frances, poor dear girl, just keeps getting embroiled with murders and solving them. It is so fun. It's so cute. There's an attractive neighbor who happens to be her best friend's brother. I can't express it enough. Please read these. Please. Like, they're so cute. They are delightful cake reads. The rest of the cozy mysteries that I read last year, rapid fire, were Murder by the Book by Lauren Elliott. Didn't love it so much. It started out with a cute premise, but didn't love that one. Murder at the Pumpkin Pageant by Darcy Hannah. That one was cute. It takes place in Michigan, and that is where I'm from, so like the vibes. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you the synopsis of these. I'm so sorry. When we do rapid fire, we're not talking about the synopsis. And the last cozy mystery I read last year was A Guidebook to Murder by Lauren Cahoon. That one was very cute. It takes place in a coastal town in Northern California, so it was cute. I got like a cozy mystery that takes place where I grew up, and then a cozy mystery that takes place where I currently live. Okay, I'm going to pop these in here real quick because they are the only ones of their kind that I read. Cyberpunk. Technically, I read the second book, A Bounty Hunter's Guide to Hackers and Heartbreak, I read twice last year because one of the times I read it for the first time, I was like reacting to it. And the second time I was copy editing it because my critique partner published these books last year. And I love them so much. I might be biased, but like, oh my God, they're so stinking cute. They're super fun. They do not take themselves seriously. They are cyberpunk, romance, fun, kick-ass. The first book is The Bounty Hunter's Guide to Romance and Rivalry, and it follows our bounty hunter right here, Miss Issa, as she moves to a new city of Neo Toriel, like the big city, and is joining a group, technically. Business. She's working for somebody, and she gets herself a team, and she gets on assignments, and she goes and this bounty hunter thinks she goes after people, but she's just fun. She's a good time, and her adorable team that she meets becomes very found family-esque. And also we've got Ren, who on the opposite end of the spectrum also moves to a new city. The same city, Neo Toriel, but Ren is a cop. Yeah, and they used to be partners, but now they're on opposite sides. It is so fun. They end up working the same case on different sides of the tracks. We are having fun entanglements, and then the fun continues in book 2. This is a duology, so their story is done at the end of this one. It's available on Amazon. I'm gonna link it below because obviously my friend wrote these and I absolutely adore them. Also, I did the covers and she did the like front cover art and I did the cover formatting and design, and I also like copy edited and designed the interior. So if you need that, hit me up. But like, they're so much fun. If you need a good like laugh, read these. Okay, the next section I'm going to talk about, because last year I finally dipped my toes, well, I dove headfirst actually into the world of Sarah J. Maas, and I read ACOTAR for the first time, and also the second, third, fourth, and fifth time. I reread these books a lot. They're just comforting, okay? If you have not read these books, Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It's kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, except don't think like Disney, think like original French fairy tale, okay? It starts off with our girl, Feyre, or Feifei, as I like to call her. She lives in a very shabby cottage with her father and her 2 sisters. I have issues with the sisters, it's fine. Basically, her entire family is useless, and little Feifei here has to do everything to take care of her family, including going out and hunt. And one day, she is out on the hunt with her bow and arrow, and she spots a deer. Yay, lots of food. Except then also she spots a gigantic wolf. And, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do when you gotta feed your family, right? So she axes the wolf and the deer and like takes everything back home to her family, and so they have food, and you know, they can sell the pelts for money in the marketplace and what have you. At least that would be all fine and dandy if a gigantic monster thing, it's like wolf with antlers and something. Anyway, if a gigantic monster doesn't show up at their cottage that night and is like, oh my gosh, you offed my friend. Like, that's not cool. And now because you did that and my friend was a fairy, which was the wolf, by the way, the wolf, the fairy, you gotta come live with me in fairyland, which is Prithian, which is on the other side of the wall, because there's a magical wall that separates the mortal lands from the fairy lands, okay? He offers to have one of her family take her place, and her family's like, nah, you can go, sis. So dear Feyre goes with this monster creature dude over the wall into fairyland, and fun wackiness ensues. Because of course he's not a monster, he's actually a high lord. He is cursed to wear a Mardi Gras mask because reasons you find out. It's a good time. I'm doing a terrible description of this, but I feel like this is so popular, like you will find a better one. I don't know. Anyway, my point is this book gets really, really fun at about the 60% mark. But I was like thoroughly enjoying it up until then. Like, I wasn't loving it when I first started reading it in the beginning, but I was like interested enough that I kept reading. Also, props to Sarah J. Maas, because she included one of my favorite Irish folklore creatures, which is a puka. She included one of them in this book. So she had me at a puka, you know, and the surreal. We love a good queen. It's a fun book. It's a fun romp. The book 2 is absolutely my favorite in the series, which I don't think is an unpopular opinion. I highly recommend them. They're a good time. Don't believe all the like slander, because I'm entering the spoilery section, so if you want to skip that, I will have a timestamp somewhere. But I went into this book kind of already knowing the plot, absolutely knowing who her endgame romance was going to be. And so I was on the lookout for dear Reese. So when he does show up in this book, I was like, I was locked in. I knew who he was. Honestly, Homeboy is the best part of this book. He's so damn funny. Like, I loved him. I loved him instantly. I loved him in this book. And I've heard people talk smack about him in this book, about the like his actions in this book. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're bad. Maybe it's just me, okay? You can yell at me, but I don't think what he does in this book is that bad. I love him. He's funny. You win my heart if you're funny. Let's be real. So pick up this book. Super fun. Great time. Moving on. Continuing on that trend, I read the first 3 books of Patricia Briggs's Mercy Thompson series. If you don't know, it follows a shapeshifter, Mercy Thompson. She shapeshifts into a coyote. She lives next door to an alpha werewolf and like his pack. And in the first book, something happens with him and she has to rescue him, and there is a mystery involved. There's a kidnapping, there's the mystery. It's a lot of fun shenanigans. And she was raised in a pack of werewolves too. So, but she's a coyote. It's fine. Anyway, it's really cute. She's a mechanic by day, does like fun things by night. One of her besties is a vampire who is so sassy. We love him. Book 2 is more about the vampires. And then book 3 is where I rage quit the series. I am going to talk spoilers. I will put a timestamp. Also, trigger warning for SA. Because I did not get a trigger warning. So I was recommended this book series by a friend of mine, and to her credit, it's great fun. Like the character of Mercy Thompson is sassy, is sarcastic, is fun, great sense of humor. Like I absolutely loved her. I loved the dynamics with the menfolk in her life, with like the werewolves and the vampire best friend and like all of it. I find it great fun. And then I got to book 3, and I am sorry, there is unnecessary SA. This is my opinion. I realize that. The end of book 3, she gets drugged and is essayed by the murderer. Other things could have happened. In my personal opinion, other things could have happened without that having happened. And it's like repeatedly, by the way. It's not a one-time thing. And it's freaking video recorded. I don't know. Maybe it was necessary for the series. I rage quit the series after that. I physically could not handle it. I did finish the book because, you know, I have morbid curiosity. It made me ill reading it. And so I cannot, and it's something that will continue to come up in the series as she recovers rightfully from her traumatizing experience. And I'm sorry, I can't do it. I cannot do it. That is a no-go for me. I don't know, if you can handle it, maybe it would be a fun series for you. I couldn't handle it. I am not going to read it anymore. I did a reread of The Keepers of Metzim Vallow by Wendy Webb. I'm going to do a whole separate video about the books by Wendy Webb because I adore her. Okay, like it is deep, 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 deep love. It takes place in the fictional town of Wharton on Lake Superior, and there's an island next to Wharton, like in Lake Superior, called, I can't remember the name. Anyway, there's an island. So technically this book takes place on the island, not in Wharton. But anyway, a bunch of her books, almost all of her books take place in this like little fictional area. Being from Michigan and knowing that the Great Lakes are fun and sassy and have all sorts of stories about them, Wendy Webb is such an amazingly atmospheric writer. If you want to feel like you're there, read her books. It teleports me there every single time. I feel like I am camping up north in Michigan. That's not where the books are set, but that's what it feels like. Wharton feels like Mackinac Island, Michigan to me, which I cannot express how much I love that place. So it feels like traveling home. This family is gathering for the will reading of the grandma who passed away, the matriarch of the family. They're gathering at the family home, Metzim Vallow. Yes, the home has a name, so you know it be fancy. And the will is read. Our MC, the granddaughter, inherits the majority. She inherits the house. She's now the keeper of Metzim Vallow. Name drop the title right there. But wackiness ensues while they're there. Shenanigans of all sorts happen. There eventually is a kidnapping. Like our MC and her brother get like locked in a sauna. She gets waken up in the middle of the night. They are assaulted by bugs, but the folklore is a lot of fun. It's a good time. I recommend it. A little spooky, very atmospheric. It's a vibe. Also, there's romance. Of course there is. Okay, last one I'm going to talk about in like a fantasy realm. I read The Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, which is the first book of her War of No Hearts series. It's a trilogy. I did read the second 2 books this year, but I read the first one last year. So, but it follows Tisana, who is a former slave, and she travels across the sea to the towers, or to the tower, I'm not sure, to train in magic because she has magic. She was born with it. She's just not terribly good at it. And there's like light magic and dark magic, but not like bad. There's just like 2 different forms. She goes to train. And sadly, the school year has already started, so they don't have a teacher for her, so they pluck someone out of retirement. Enter our male MC, Maxentarius Fabian. We love him. He is a cranky pants. He does not want to teach her. He is just angry at the whole world, and I love him. His sarcasm, his humor is spectacular. 10 out of 10. And the fact that Tisana is a little ball of sunshine, who also, there is a language barrier between the two of them in book one. She is learning the language. She only knows a little bit of their language. So it is a blast with the two of them. Of course, you know, she will wear him down, but like, we have a grumpy sunshine situation here. Absolutely adorable. The world is fascinating. The magic system is absolutely fascinating. There is a larger story going on. Of course, Tisana wants to go back and free the rest of her people because she managed to escape, but like, her friends are all back in a not great situation. They're all still slightly enslaved, which is bad, very bad. 10 out of 10 bad. So she wants to like get an army and go back and get them. Also get more powerful, get more magical, so she's able to like defeat the bad guys, which we love. So that is the overarching story. Of course, it's not that simple. There's like politics, there's all sorts of different things. There's a past story that comes into play. It is a good time. Oh, of course, also our Maxentarius Fabian, naturally, as the male character, he has a tragic backstory. This series was a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about another series by Carissa Broadbent in a different category, but this series was enjoyable. I did enjoy the first book the best, I think, out of the three. Maybe also the third one. But I will talk about all three in a separate video. And I believe they're also being republished this year, if I'm not mistaken, because she originally indie published them, and I think now her like trad publisher is publishing them with new stuff. But I personally love the artwork of the covers. So like, okay, I only have like one in the category of more sci-fi fantasy. I suppose it's like dystopian, and it was a reread, so I'm gonna drop it right here. That was Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve, which the movie came out a few years ago. It's like a dystopian world. Like, we don't have land masses anymore that we live on. We don't live in houses. We live in giant machines that move, which is very cool. World building is freaking awesome. The movie was on some sort of a streaming service. I found it and I rewatched it, and I couldn't remember. I remember being mad at the movie when I saw the movie because I had read the book first. Never do that. If you like, in my personal opinion, if you don't want to be disappointed with a movie adaptation, watch the movie first and then read the book, because you won't be mad that way. Because if you read the book first, no matter how like good an attempt the movie adaptation is, it's still gonna fall short of the book. And this one, they cut like a whole freaking chunk. Anyway, let's not talk about that. But Mortal Engines by Christopher Reeve, by not Christopher Reeve, that's Superman. By Philip Reeve. Oopsie. It's really interesting. Fun world. Follows a girl who is desperately trying to get revenge and a mechanic who just really wants to get home, and they get embroiled in a war, and he learns to not be rude. I'm describing it terribly. It's a fun story. This is mystery thriller category. So every year I read some of Agatha Christie's, specifically Poirot series. I am trying to slowly work my way through all of the Poirots. I love him. 2024 was no exception. These are like my cake reads. They're a nice, relaxing break in between more stressful books. I love Agatha Christie's writing. I love Poirot. I love the mysteries. Sometimes her books are devastating. Like, they cut you. For example, this is not in the Poirot series. Crooked House is one I read last year by Agatha Christie. It is a standalone. It just kind of breaks your heart, man. In Crooked House, this guy comes to the manor because the patriarch of the family has passed away, and his granddaughter, I believe, suspects that it is murder, not died of natural causes, even though Granddad was incredibly old. There's a suspicion of unnatural circumstances. Detective who has a history with the granddaughter ends up coming there and ends up staying at the house and is like slowly talking to the whole family and investigating, and there is a child who knows way more than everybody else. I'm just saying, like, someone is paying attention and everybody else is not. There is a sassy aunt. There's a really good film adaptation in which the sassy aunt is played by Glenn Close. Highly recommend. You do eventually get the resolution to the murder, and it kind of cuts you. It's kind of painful. Which sometimes, you know, Dame Agatha Christie does that, which we love her for that. And then I also read of her books, Dead Man's Folly, After the Funeral, and Evil Under the Sun. And those three are Poirot's. I'm not going to go into description. They're part of, if you know, the Hercule Poirot, not the Kenneth Branagh movies. I'm so sorry. I do love him and appreciate him as an actor and a director, but like, he's not my Poirot, okay? That belongs to David Suchet. Also, if you can find any of the audiobooks read by David Suchet, please do. Oh my God, it is a beautiful experience to listen to any of the Hercule Poirot books read by that man, because he does the Belgian accent, with the gray cells, and he does Poirot's accent, which we love. And then he also has his normal British accent, and then he does voices for all the characters because he's an actor and he's really good, and it's amazing. They are so good. It will always be a good time reading an Agatha Christie. Next up, we have The Drowning Kind by Jennifer McMahon. I read a few books by her this year. The Drowning Kind was not my favorite, but meh. We'll get to the others. The others are in a different category entirely. Next up, Bad Summer People by Emma Rosenblum. It was just fine, honestly, in my opinion. It was fine. I listened to The Christmas Party by Catherine Croft. I believe it's an Audible original. It was fun. Scottish Island, old friends getting together. Something happened many years ago, broke up the friend group, and now we're all reconvening many years later on this Scottish island in a blizzard over Christmas, with all of these now estranged friends trying to figure out what happened all those years ago. We love a cold case. We love an isolation trope. It was a good time. Next, I reread Pretty Dead Queens by Alexa Dunn. I can't remember what intrigued me, or like what got me to reread it. I've read it before. I read it when it first came out. I enjoyed it. I reread it again this year. It's so fun. It's such a good time. It is a YA thriller. This girl who is recently orphaned moves in with her grandmother? Yeah, her grandmother. And the grandmother is a very famous author in a small town in Northern California, small coastal town, Northern California. She slowly makes friends with people, but there is a moida that happens that is very, very similar, almost identical to a similar situation that happened several years ago, like when her grandmother was in high school. That's how long ago it was. And so they mirror each other. But the problem was the old crime, there's someone in prison for it. So did they get it wrong? Is there, a serial killer out there somewhere? Or did we get it right the first time and now there's just a copycat? What's happening? It's a fun little twisty story. There's cute friendships along the way. There's spicy little romance. Like, it's just fun. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. I also read The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. This one I like. Similar type of trope. I have a type with thrillers. There was an older case that existed, and all of a sudden now in present day, there are murders happening that are very similar to this old case. So did we get the wrong guy, or is this something newer entirely? We don't know. There is a cat in this book. The cat lives. This is very important. The cat is fun and sassy, and I appreciated the inclusion of pets. I appreciate the inclusion of pets when they survive the story. If they do not survive, we do not like the book. Another YA thriller, I read One of Us is Lying by Carrie M. McManus. Why can't I remember her name? I don't know. This book came out a few years ago. I had heard about it at the time, and I think I actually watched a review that explained the entire plot of it, including who the killer was. I let so much time go by that I completely forgot who the killer was. So reading it was a good time. It was a good experience. It's a bunch of kids in detention. There is a locked door mystery, right? Or closed door mystery, whatever that is. Locked room mystery. Basically, these kids in detention, one of them like bites the dust while they're in there. So it has to be one of the kids in the room, but no one knows who it is. Oh, it's so fun. It was really fun. It was a delightful, twisty read. I was not expecting how good it was, especially because I had like heard a review before, even though I couldn't remember the review at all. It was too long ago, but it was fun. Also in the YA thriller category, Alexa Dunn came out with a new book last year, The Bitter End, and I did read that. That one was an isolation trope in a blizzard. These students are on is it a sanctioned trip for their school? Like a bunch of the other kids got to do different things, like, you know, go to Europe or whatever. And these poor kids got signed up to just like go skiing. I've never been skiing. I suppose it's fun, but like, I'm sorry, between Europe and skiing, I would take Europe. You can ski in Europe too, like, I'm just saying. People start getting bumped off one by one. So one of them did it, and we gotta find out who, and it is fun, and it's messy, and genuinely, I don't think I figured it out. I had my suspicions, which this is, you know, that's the whole fun of thrillers, you get to play a detective. I don't think I figured it out. I think I had a suspicion, and I think my suspicion was incorrect. So well done, Alexa. I love her thrillers, by the way. Like, dude, her thrillers are so much fun. Next up, I read The Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. This was actually the first thriller I read last year, I think, because it came out in like January or February, something like that. It was multi-generational, different things happening. There was a girl who worked in a nursing home, and one of the like elderly patients passes away, and there is like something sussy happen with that. There's also a prison situation. Again, I don't fully remember the plot, so sorry, it's been too long, but I did enjoy it. And there is a stunningly, hang on, I have it here. There is a stunningly fabulous quote that I highlighted. A paper cut is a tree's revenge. I just thought that was fun. Next up, I read The Night I Died by Anne Fraser. I also read Found Object by Anne Fraser last year. The Night I Died, this girl goes home to her small little hometown where, of course, a crime happened many, many moons ago. Something that is happening in present day when she goes home is happening all over again, and like we have to solve the old case and the new case, and there is an annoying detective. Have I sold you on it? It was a good time. It was a good time. I'm just saying, it was fun. The other one, Found Object, also by Anne Fraser. That one was girl returning to hometown. Her very famous actress mother died many moons ago in suspicious circumstances. And our girl is there, I believe, for work reasons, but then she is like forced to interact with her father and slowly uncover the mystery of what the heck happened to her mother. I remember mostly I had a lot of fun reading this book, but it's been a minute. Next up, I read The Caretakers by Elise Maxwell. This one, Audible kept recommending to me based on my rating. Okay, so this is where the algorithm is incorrect, because it was saying based on reading Wendy Webb and Simone St. James, we'll get to her. I read some of her books last year too, but based on my reading of those two ladies, it suggested this book, The Caretakers. Now, those other books that I just mentioned by Wendy Webb and by Simone St. James, they have one thing in common, which is the ghosties, okay? They have all of the ghosties. I love the ghosty book. I eat those up like freaking candy. I adore the ghosty books. Spoiler alert, The Caretakers is not a ghosty book. It is a cold case mystery. You do find out what happened, and it's like sisterly bonding. There's also like a present tense situation happening, which, you know, gets resolved, whatever, but there's no ghosties. I was so upset. So do not listen to Audible's recommendations. I'm just saying, they get it wrong. The book was fun. I'm just cranky because they got it wrong. Next up, I read The Au Pair by Emma Roos. I read another book by her, I think like the year before, and I really enjoyed it. The Au Pair, also enjoyed it, but it's just a little more sad. It starts with our main character inherited the house from her deceased father, and she's looking into all of this stuff, and she, you know, when you feel like the black sheep of your family, she has always felt that way. And so she's now wondering if somehow she is not related to her family, and she's delving into family secrets, and her great aunt does not want her delving into the family secrets. It goes back and forth between timelines, so you kind of get a glimpse of the au pair who took care of the kids when they were young, or like the oldest brother, I think she took care of when they were young. There was also a tragedy that happens. I'm not going to go into it, but it is a like present family secrets mystery, past what happened mystery. It's interesting. I like that one. This Is How I Lied by Heather Gudenkopf. I really hope I said that correctly. I am so sorry. I enjoyed this book. There's a sculptural artist in it, unrelated, but that's our main character's brother. There something happened. I think someone went missing or passed away many years ago, and now our main character is a detective in her like small hometown. Her father is not doing so well, and we are solving the case of what happened all those years ago. It's small town secrets, like neighbors, finding out what happened in like her own family, finding out what happened with the neighbor people, like, which is fun. And of course, our main character has a secret of her own. It is wintry setting, is ice, there is a cliff, there are caves, it is creepy. We love. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I've dipped my toe into Riley Sager's writing over the last like few years. This one I thoroughly enjoyed. Our main character is going back to the family home and restoring the family home. She's going to try to like bring it back to life because it's been abandoned and dilapidated for some time now. Such a bummer. Her father, I believe, wrote a book about the time that the family spent living there because supposedly the house is haunted. This book was giving House on Haunted Hill vibes. There are like spooky noises in the house, there are creaks, things get taken and we don't know what happened, or like there's missing items and there's items like replaced. I love that shenanigans, and there's obviously a mystery and we find out what happens. It's a good time. I read Arrowwood by Lauren McHugh. I forget how I came across this one. I think I was also in search of a ghosty book and I found this one. Hi darling. You're so cute. Yeah. Arrowwood is another one where our MC returns to her hometown, hasn't been there in many years. She returns to the old mansion. Her twin sister was taken when they were, say, like 3 years old, something like that. She had a twin sister and she was taken, kidnapped, and never found. And we are going back to the old house, I think because she has like no other option, or she inherited it, something like that. And she's trying to uncover the mystery of what the fluff happened to her sister, with trying to uncover family secrets, you know, that sort of vibe. It's a good time. Excuse me, sir, you are on my notes. Suddenly a Murder by Lauren Munoz. I hope I said that correctly. I'm so sorry if I did not. This one, it's, I guess, kind of a YA thriller or new adult thriller. Yeah. A bunch of kids just graduated from high school. They're very wealthy. Wonder what that's like. And they rent out an entire island for their high school graduation party, or like post-grad party. Our main character is not as wealthy, but her bestie is the one who's funding this entire thing. And the bestie decides it's going to be a 1920s theme party all freaking weekend. She supplies the outfits. Like everyone has to like leave their cell phones in a basket or like on the boat, something like that. So they are stranded on an island. And of course, one of them gets bumped off. And then it's like, oh my gosh, who done it? Because it has to be one of these incredibly wealthy kids. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It had an ending I did not see coming. And honestly, the like friendship between the girls like hit me. It hit home. It's a good one. I enjoyed that. Hello, this is a completely different day. I lost the light the last time, and apparently I just have way too many books to talk about. Next in the thriller category, I read Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6. tongue twister by Lisa Unger. I think this is the first Lisa Unger book I've ever read, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I thoroughly enjoyed this. So I picked it up around like when it started to be in the winter season heading towards Christmas, because I was hoping it would be like a cold weather vibe. It was actually, it was more rainstormy, sadly, than cold weather, but you know what? It was still fun. Multiple couples going to stay in like this weekend retreat in a cabin. All of the couples have secrets. Everybody's got something going on. You get multiple POVs, and you also get the POV of the person who like owns the cabins, who like rents it out. He's a little creepy, not gonna lie, but you're like trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because of course people start flat out disappearing and we're trying to figure out what happens while also trying to uncover the secrets between all 6 of these couples. And it's messy. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Again, there's pouring rain, so it in the forest, middle of nowhere. Of course, there's no cell service, because why would there be? No. It was a vibe. It was a good vibe. It was a creepy, eerie, you feel like you're being watched all the time vibe. So if you like that sort of thing, and it was a fun mystery. I don't know. I also read Last Night by Luann Rice. This was the 3rd book in her series, but I feel like honestly the way she writes these, you could read them like individually and it would not affect the plot one way or another, because like each book is a new mystery. The only thing like tying them together is the location and kind of the detective, but not fully. I don't know. I guess maybe the detective, but it's not like a normal detective series. That's what I'm trying to get across. These 3 books by her are very art-centric, and this is the 3rd one. This is the one that came out last year. And this one involved a moida, of course, and a kidnapping of a small child. Oh no, dreadful. And you do get the small child's POV, which I question. Didn't quite feel like, I think the kid was supposed to be like 6 or 8, but had her seeming at some points very, very juvenile. Again, expected for a small child, but then at other points, just like a little bit too intelligent beyond her years. So like it kind of varied a little bit. That was the one thing that kind of took me out of the story. Otherwise, thoroughly enjoyed it. It starts off with our detective taking his girlfriends on a romantic weekend getaway to this little like seaside bed and breakfast. It's just like up the coast from where they live, you know. It's very cute, very romantic. And he 100% has a ring in his pocket and wants to pop the question. But damn it, they find a body on the beach. They get embroiled, both of them. Him and his girlfriend get embroiled in the case. So even though he is technically on vacation, this is not his jurisdiction. He knows the cops who are investigating it, and there's talking back and forth. And since he's the one who found the body, he gets to like somewhat participate. And again, there's the kidnapping of the small child. So we figure out, we solve the case in the end. And again, these books, this one was a little less art-centric. It still had, like, there was a warehouse full of art that they have to go to at one point and like look through the art pieces. There's art pieces in the bed and breakfast that they're staying in. So it's still art-centric. This is just a thing I personally enjoy, also because I'm writing a thriller that has a little bit of an art-centric subplot. So I enjoy that, and I live in a very artsy community, and I'm an artsy human, so I find it fun. Anyway, it was a good time. I think still out of the 3 books in the series, so there's something like a Shadow Box is book 2. I want to say Last Night is the first one. I will look it up, and I will put them somewhere in this vicinity, so I'm not, I will give you proper information, but I think the first one is still my favorite. It's just, it's a good vibe. I did not expect it, so that was fun. The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I love her. She is an auto buy for me. This one came out last year, and I got to read it around the time when the book takes place, which is the summer solstice. So, and there's a feast at midnight on the summer solstice, and that's a whole thing. It's a planned presentation. This book takes place in the events that immediately after said feast, where things go horribly awry, and the events leading up to said summer solstice feast is the morning after. Of course, there's a discovery of a body, because naturally this is a murder mystery. So we have, I think there's a body on a road. I think there might be one on a beach too. And it's like, what is happening? Who are we piecing together? There are long held feuds. This is a small town vibes mystery. There's multiple POVs. You are not really sure who to trust. There's dress up and like local lore and possibly a curse in the woods and witchy vibes. And it was a good time. Honestly, like, her books are always such a good time. It was a lot of fun. I recommend. I popped into another Riley Sager with The House Across the Lake. This woman is recently widowed, very sad, and she is temporarily living at her family's cabin on this lake in like remote area. Her mother is a famous actress, and like she went into the acting, and like that's how she met her husband, but then that all fell apart. But she was a noted party girl, and after an incident where she got particularly inebriated post her husband's untimely accidental death in the lake, it didn't go so well for her in the headlines and all of that. So her family like ships her off to this cabin, which I personally feel is incredibly insensitive considering her husband drowned in the lake outside. So like it's kind of rude. So it's just, you're grieving, so let me put you in the place where you experienced your trauma. Like, let's just do that. So that feels a little weird. But while she's there, she's got this couple living across the lake from her in another house, and she gets a little rear window action and spies on them, sees them arguing. She meets them, doesn't trust the husband, sees the wife being like, meek and what have you, a little like nervous and scared and like something might be in the wine, and then all of a sudden the wife is missing. Well, gee, that's suspicious, especially since there's like hardly anyone living on this lake. Like, we got one old dude living a little like further away, and like that's it. She's got people like delivering her groceries, but other than that, there's nobody here. So obviously it's the husband, which she thinks. And so she takes it upon herself to investigate this disappearance of this woman, who, by the way, like, she tries, I think, to call it in. So again, very reminiscent of Rear Window, the Alfred Hitchcock movie with Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. Her outfits are perfect in that film. I'm sorry. Side note. So this chick takes it upon herself to investigate the missing wife, like, on her own, and just like gets herself, like, she breaks into the house at one point, like, girlfriend, if you think this guy axed his wife, like the person he's supposed to love, the person that he would obviously like be the number one suspect by police if he actually did do this, like, why are you going into his house? All of that being said, my critique of her stupidity aside, this book kept me on the edge of my seat. There was a twist ending that I did not see coming. I did thoroughly enjoy this one. So there you go. I finally scratched off actually 2 books, but I'll get to the second one later, that have been on my TBR for many moons this past year. One of them would be Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, because I freaking love that movie, okay? I have seen it over and over and over and over and over again. I absolutely adore it. And it's been on my TBR for like a while. I was curious what all started it and what the book was like. I did also thoroughly enjoyed the book, thoroughly enjoyed the whole, like, I was listening to it. So the listening experience I thoroughly enjoyed. And I truly think the adaptation is genuinely really good. Maybe that's just my unprofessional opinion. I don't really know. But like, they hit on a lot of the points. Like, I didn't feel like things were missing of anything. I think the performances of like Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins just like knocked it up to an 11, what was already like, you know, a solid 9 in the book. I think the book was pretty good, but like there's a little bit more misogyny in the book than there is in the movie. So like I appreciate the like, but I think it was a really good adaptation. It was really fun to finally read the book that I had, you know, been a huge fan of the film for a long time and like to see its original roots. Again, I think this is the best possible way to do like a movie to book adaptation for you to consume it as the reader / watcher. If you watch the film first and then read the book, because the disappointment level is a lot less. Okay, it's a personal opinion, because I've only ever experienced disappointment usually in extreme levels when I start off with the book and then watch the movie. Next up on the list is Ward D by Frida McFadden. I did not enjoy this one, I'll be honest, which like is a bummer because it had like all of the makings of something that I would like. It, you know, locked room, closed room mystery inside a psych ward. We have she's not a nurse, I think she's studying to be a doctor. She's like doing her residency, our main character, and she does rounds, or she's got the night shift on the psych ward, and like creepy things happen. She finds out there's a girl who's in there who she has a history with, and there's like stuff going on there. There's stuff going on with stuff that there's like supernatural almost stuff that happens. I don't know. It was just, you know, when you go into a book and you want to be a little scared, you want to be a little freaked out, but it just goes beyond the suspension of disbelief to the point where I'm like, this is ridiculous. It kind of hit that for me. Sorry, not a fan. Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This was the one that came out last year. It was fine. Okay, honestly, I fully regretted spending an Audible credit on this book. I'm sorry. I did. But this one is a guy returns to his hometown, or like is living in his hometown, but a mystery happened. Like a little boy went missing many moons ago. Now like potential things are happening again, and we're trying to solve the mystery of back then and the mystery of now. There's a very odd romance. It felt like shoehorned in for, I don't know, maybe it was just me. Anyway, my point is I was not a fan of this one. I could have skipped. The Weekend Retreat by Tara Biskowski. This one, it sounded really intriguing. Body on the boardwalk. I think takes place in like a Hamptons area, if not like the Hamptons, but like, you know, annual wealthy retreat. A bunch of wealthy couples, and again, body on the beach over a very stormy weekend. Yeah, it's you know, a small town mystery, so it has to be one of these people like trying to figure out throughout the book who was where, because you know you're flashing back and forth in time. You're trying to figure out of all of these people, this ensemble cast, like who was where when this happened, who could have possibly, you know, this woman, because no one really particularly liked her. Like, sadly, the woman was extremely annoying, but just I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. I was not enjoying it. It was just kind of meh. Ooh, a fun one was An Author's Guide to Murder by multiple people. Sorry, I need to read this. I need to reference my notes. By Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willis, and Kate White. If you're a writer, this book was so self-aware. It was so fun. So it's this trio of women writers who convince their publisher to basically fund a trip, or like a tour of, I think they're in Scotland, by saying, you know, the three of them are going to pair up and write a book. So they get their publisher to pay for a research trip, which is basically just their like tour. And they stay in this like castle where crime had previously been committed like many moons ago. We're talking like century or so in the past. I believe it's on an island in the Outer Hebrides, and there is a laird of the island. Sorry for my terrible accent, but I can't help it. If this will happen again, I apologize in advance for all of my terrible accents. So in this one, on the island, the three authoresses are completely different. We have like the Susie homemaker, who has like multiple kids, sweet devoted husband, like very, very, very sweet woman, likes to bake when stressed. Next, you have the cranky bourgeois, like she doesn't care what anyone thinks, she does what she wants. Writer. She writes more salacious books, I suppose, but again, she's incredibly sexy all the time, and she just doesn't care what anyone thinks. She totally cares what people think, but doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. And then you have the very studious one. She writes biographies, obviously. Like, she is intelligent. She does her research. None of this piddling fiction for her. No, 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 no. These three women pretend to be friends to get this book deal. They are not friends, as you very quickly find out. They know absolutely, like, nothing about each other aside from what they've heard in, like, publishing sphere at, like, networking events and stuff. But they all, as you slowly discover, have something in common. There is a moida, of course, that happens on the islands, in the castle, and clearly it's somebody, like, there's only like 40 or so people that live here, so like it's somebody that we met so far. There's a limited amount of possibilities, and it's the dude who owns the place, the castle, that was so. Police are investigating it, and they're like, the girls are trying to figure out their own mystery about like the historical stuff that happened, which was, you know, the premise of their book, so the reason they're there. But then they're also trying to figure out who possibly did the crime, because you know, the cops are interviewing them and thinking one of them did it. The mystery was intriguing. It was good. I enjoyed it. Shockingly wholesome friendships that you would not expect. The enemies to lovers trope, but it was enemies to friends. There's like fangirly moments. There's very like meta writerly moments. I had fun with this one. This was a good book, so 10 out of 10.